Hello. Today General Hospital will reveal exciting news on Friday, August 8, 2025. First, the tension between Lulu and Dante has reached a boiling point. With their emotions running high and their relationship fraying at the seams. What started as small disagreements has now escalated into full-blown arguments, with both parties unwilling to back down. Lulu, who has always been strong-willed, finds herself frustrated by Dante's inability to understand her perspective, while Dante, who has always been protective of his family, feels betrayed and unheard. The air between them crackles with anger, each blaming the other for the emotional distance that has grown between them. Their once solid foundation now feels fragile, leaving both of them questioning the future of their marriage. Meanwhile, the situation between Chase and Brooke Lynn has taken a similarly tense turn. The couple, already struggling with their differences, finds themselves at odds over a critical decision that could change their lives forever: adopting a child. Brooke Lynn, who has always been determined and independent, feels that the timing isn't right to fully dive into the complexities of parenthood. She believes that they need to focus on stabilizing their situation with Gio first before adding more stress to their already fragile relationship. However, her desire for stability only seems to deepen the divide between her and Chase, who is eager to move forward and start their family. Despite her best efforts to put things in order, Brooke Lynn finds herself at odds with Gio, who refuses to reconcile with her and Dante. Gio, who had once been a key part of Brooke Lynn's life, now seems like a stranger to her. His bitterness and resentment standing in the way of any form of reconciliation. No matter how hard Brooke Lynn tries, Gio remains adamant that he doesn't want to fix things. As she sees him struggling, she is reminded of the pain she caused. Her heart aches with the knowledge that her past mistakes have left a permanent scar on their relationship. And she can't help but feel responsible for the chasm that exists between them. She wishes she could go back and change things, but that possibility remains out of her reach, leaving her with nothing but regret and sorrow. Dante, too, is feeling the strain of the situation, as his relationship with Brooke Lynn is now entangled in the mess with Gio. He cannot understand why Gio refuses to make amends, why someone who was once close to them both now stands so firmly against them. Dante wants to fix the situation, to find a way to bring everyone back together, but the more he tries, the more it seems like his efforts only make things worse. His frustration grows as he feels helpless in the face of a problem that refuses to be solved. Every attempt to reach out to Gio is met with resistance. And the emotional toll is starting to show on Dante, who is at a loss for how to proceed. The constant bickering between Brooke Lynn and Chase only adds to the tension in the household. While Chase is eager to move forward with their plans for adoption, he can't ignore the fact that Brooke Lynn's unresolved issues with Gio are weighing heavily on her. He doesn't understand why she can't let go of the past, why she insists on putting their future on hold to fix things with someone who clearly doesn't want to be fixed. This sense of impatience and frustration builds up, creating an emotional wall between the couple that neither seems able to break through. Each day feels like a battle, with no resolution in sight. And both are left wondering if their marriage can withstand the strain. Second, Anna and Jason share a complex and deep connection, forged over years of working together in both professional and personal capacities. Their bond is unique, built on mutual trust and understanding, yet complicated by the many secrets they both carry. Anna, having been a part of Jason's life for a long time, is someone he respects greatly. Despite the many challenges they have faced, both as individuals and as part of larger conspiracies, there remains an unspoken connection between them. This bond plays a significant role when Anna finds herself in a precarious situation, one that could unravel everything they've worked toward. Jason, ever the protector, becomes immediately aware of Anna's disappearance, which sends a ripple of concern through him. The gravity of the situation becomes even more personal when he realizes that Anna's abduction is not just a random event but part of a larger plot that might involve dangerous people, including Sidwell. As the pressure mounts, Anna faces an intense conflict of her own. being forced into silence about Jocelyn's involvement with the WSB. Anna is caught between her duty to her agency and her love for her daughter. Brennan, a shadowy figure from her past, continues to exert control over her, using fear and manipulation to keep her in line. The strain of holding on to this secret weighs heavily on Anna, who is torn between doing what's right for Jocelyn and the risks involved in revealing the truth. In this precarious situation, Anna's world feels like it's crumbling. She has always been in control, a seasoned agent who's dealt with the most dangerous criminals. But now, the walls are closing in on her, and she finds herself vulnerable, needing to rely on those who are willing to help her. Jason's immediate reaction upon discovering Anna's disappearance is one of sheer determination. He understands the stakes better than most, knowing that Anna is not only valuable to the WSB but also an integral part of his own life. His protective instincts are heightened, and he cannot ignore the fact that something is terribly wrong. The connection between them runs deeper than just business, and Jason realizes that his personal feelings for Anna are influencing his every move. As he pieces together the clues surrounding her abduction, he comes to one inevitable conclusion: the man responsible for her disappearance is Sidwell, someone who has tangled with both Anna and Jason in the past. This realization fuels Jason's anger and sense of urgency. He cannot allow Sidwell to continue manipulating and threatening Anna, a man who has no qualms about using violence to get what he wants. But Jason is beyond the point of hesitation. He is fully prepared to take matters into his own hands. The fact that Anna's life is at stake makes the situation all the more personal, and he will stop at nothing to ensure her safety. He begins to track down Sidwell's whereabouts, his mind focused solely on the task at hand. The thought of Anna being in danger fuels Jason's every move, and he channels his frustration and worry into a singular goal: to find her and bring her back. As Jason prepares for the confrontation with Sidwell, the weight of the situation becomes clear. He understands that the stakes are higher than ever before. Sidwell is not a man to be underestimated, and Jason knows that if he doesn't play his cards right, Anna could be lost to him forever. The tension builds as Jason takes each step closer to Sidwell, his mind racing with thoughts of Anna, her safety, her well-being, and the possibility that she might not be as lucky as others have been in the past. He is determined, however, to see this through to the end. His connection with Anna drives him to take risks he might otherwise avoid. And the personal stakes make this mission one that is more than just a professional obligation. When Jason finally reaches Sidwell, the encounter is explosive. There is no negotiation, no room for compromise, only the raw urgency of the moment. Jason confronts Sidwell with a cold intensity that leaves no room for doubt. He makes it clear that Anna's life is off limits and that anyone who dares to harm her will pay the price. The threat hangs in the air, and Sidwell, despite his usual confidence, his actions decisive, and the message is clear: Anna is not to be touched. Third, Brennan is not the kind of man who can easily be manipulated or persuaded, especially not by someone like Carly. And it's no surprise that she's begun to grow suspicious about the connection between Vaughn and Jocelyn, as well as the mysterious organization behind them, the WSB. Despite Brennan's usually composed and cold demeanor, he can't help but feel a rising sense of alarm as Carly's probing becomes more pointed. He knows that Carly is not a stranger to danger and intrigue, and that once she sets her sights on something, she will stop at nothing until she uncovers the truth. The thought of her digging deeper into the web of secrets that he's been working to protect for so long sends a shiver of anxiety through him. As Carly continues to press him, asking seemingly innocent questions about Anna's disappearance, Brennan begins to realize just how precarious the situation is. Anna, after all, is one of the people most intimately connected to the WSB, and her sudden vanishing has only fueled speculation. Carly is clearly concerned, and though she hides it behind a veneer of calm, Brennan can see the signs of a woman who has already begun to piece together the puzzle. He knows that if Carly learns the truth about Anna's disappearance, it could lead her straight to him. The thought of Carly discovering Anna's connection to the WSB, and the fact that he is involved in the covert operations that surround her disappearance, fills him with dread. This is no longer just about keeping secrets, it's about protecting his very survival. He can't afford to let Carly dig any deeper. To maintain control of the situation, Brennan realizes that he must act quickly and decisively. His strategy is clear: downplay the importance of Anna's disappearance and deflect Carly's attention elsewhere. Brennan begins to feed her vague and inconclusive answers, intentionally keeping her in the dark and ensuring that she doesn't sense the full weight of the situation. He knows that if Carly suspects even the smallest hint of wrongdoing, it won't be long before she starts to make dangerous connections between Anna's disappearance and Jocelyn's involvement with the WSB. In Brennan's mind, the only way to keep Carly from digging deeper is to create doubt in her mind, to make her believe that there's nothing more to the situation than meets the eye. But as Brennan plays this delicate game, a part of him can't help but feel the pressure building. Carly is no amateur, she has a mother's instinct that is both sharp and relentless. If Carly ever discovered Jocelyn's involvement with the WSB, everything would unravel. Jocelyn, who has unwittingly become a pawn in Brennan's world, could easily become the focal point of Carly's investigation, and Carly would stop at nothing to protect her daughter. That thought sends a chill through Brennan. He understands just how far Carly would go to get to the truth, and the consequences of her learning that Jocelyn has been working with the WSB would be disastrous for everyone involved. Carly's discovery of Jocelyn's secret role within the WSB would not only destroy the trust between her and Brennan, it would expose the entire WSB operation to the light of day. The WSB is a powerful and dangerous organization, and if Carly were to uncover the full extent of its reach, it would be nearly impossible for anyone involved to escape unscathed. Brennan knows that if Carly ever learns the truth, she will become an unstoppable force, determined to bring down the organization that has manipulated so many lives, including her own daughters. The very idea of Carly finding out about Jocelyn's involvement with the WSB terrifies Brennan, because he knows it would be the beginning of the end for him. Knowing that he cannot afford to let Carly connect the dots, Brennan decides to take action. He increases his efforts to manipulate the situation, planting false information and steering Carly away from any conclusions that could lead her to the truth. He begins to subtly feed her misleading details, hoping to disarm her curiosity and redirect her focus. But as much as he tries to control the narrative, Brennan can't shake the feeling that time is running out. Sooner or later, Carly will figure out what's really going on, and when she does, the consequences will be far-reaching and devastating. He knows that once Carly has the truth, refusing to follow any set rules or moral guidelines that others tried to impose on her. Her rebellious nature had served her well in many situations, but now, it was pulling her deeper into a web of lies and deception. The decision to fake her own death was one of the most audacious moves she had ever made. And it had succeeded in keeping her hidden from those who had once known her. However, the cost of this deception was heavy. While everyone believed that Britt was dead, she had to sever all ties with her past, including any communication with her family and friends. It was a lonely existence, but Britt was no stranger to solitude. She had always been a woman of secrets, but now, her secrets were more dangerous than ever. The plan to keep herself hidden had been meticulously executed, and for a while, it worked. Britt was effectively erased from the world she once knew. Yet, deep inside, she felt the pull of something more. The weight of the lies she had told began to wear on her, but there was no going back. She couldn't afford to risk revealing herself, not with everything at stake. In the shadows, she remained, disconnected from the people who cared for her. Including Jason, someone she had once trusted and worked alongside. He believed her to be dead, and she knew that it was safer that way. Any connection to him now would only endanger them both. But as time passed, the isolation began to take its toll on Britt, and she realized that there was no escaping the life she had chosen. Just when she thought she had achieved a semblance of peace, Britt received an unexpected order from the same shadowy figures who had been pulling the strings from the start. Her mission was clear, but it was also chilling. She was tasked with killing Jason Morgan. The very thought of carrying out such an order sent a wave of unease through Britt's mind. Jason had always been an ally, someone who had been there for her in ways no one else had. He was not just another target to her, he was someone she had fought alongside in the trenches. Someone she had trusted. The idea of turning her back on that trust, of taking his life, felt like a betrayal of everything she had once stood for. Britt knew that she had no choice but to obey the order, though. She was too deep into this world now, with too many people watching her every move, to back out. The stakes were too high. If she refused, there would be consequences that she couldn't even begin to imagine. The organization she was working for wouldn't hesitate to make an example of her. And she was well aware of the dangers that came with disobeying their commands. But the emotional toll of the task weighed heavily on her. She couldn't shake the image of Jason's face. The way he had always stood by her despite everything. Was she really capable of going through with this? Could she kill him, knowing the pain it would cause? The question lingered in her mind. But she had no answers. As the mission loomed closer, Britt's anxiety grew. She had never been one to show fear, but this was different. This wasn't just about following orders. It was about confronting the moral abyss she had been forced into. The closer she got to the moment of truth, the more she questioned everything. She had always told herself that she would never be a puppet for anyone, but in this moment, it felt like she was no longer in control of her own fate. The very people who had taken her in, who had given her a purpose, were now asking her to destroy everything she had once valued. And in the process, they were asking her to destroy Jason, someone who represented the life she could have had if she hadn't chosen the path of darkness. Jason, on the other hand, had his own set of problems. He had been living in a world full of uncertainty and danger for years, but he had always trusted the people he worked with, especially Britt. To learn that she was now the one tasked with his execution was a shock to his system. The fear that gripped him wasn't just about his own survival. It was the realization that someone he had once trusted, someone he had cared for, was now his enemy. It was a betrayal that cut deeper than any physical wound could. Jason's mind raced as he processed this new threat. How had things gone so wrong? And more importantly, how could he protect himself when the person who was supposed to be his ally was now out to kill him? Finally, Drew's decision to seek out Elizabeth came from a place of desperation and frustration. Over the years, he had built a reputation for being a man of action, someone who could handle any challenge that came his way. However, this time was different. Drew had made a series of questionable decisions, alienating those around him, and now, the consequences of those actions were catching up to him in a way he couldn't escape. He had hurt people, betrayed trust, and left relationships fractured. Now, the very people he had wronged were turning the tables, exacting revenge for the harm he had caused. It was a bitter pill to swallow for Drew. But he knew he had no choice but to turn to someone who could help him. That someone was Elizabeth. The connection between Drew and Elizabeth was complicated. They had shared a history. One that was laden with moments of both closeness and tension. While they weren't the best of friends, they had a deep understanding of each other, having worked through difficult times in the past. Drew knew that if there was anyone who might be able to help him out of this mess, it was Elizabeth. But as he approached her, he wasn't sure what kind of reception he would get. He had hurt a lot of people, and Elizabeth was no exception. She had witnessed some of his worst decisions, and like many others, she had been left to pick up the pieces after Drew's reckless actions. When Drew finally approached Elizabeth, it wasn't with the same level of confidence that he was known for. There was an air of vulnerability about him, a humility that he had never shown before. He needed her help, and he wasn't too proud to admit it. His situation had grown dire. The people he had crossed were now making their move, and Drew was at their mercy. He wasn't accustomed to being on the defensive, but the mounting pressure had pushed him into a corner. He hoped that Elizabeth, despite everything, would be willing to assist him. However, Elizabeth's response was not what he had hoped for. Elizabeth, seeing Drew in this vulnerable state, felt a deep conflict within herself. On one hand, she understood the pressure he was under. The weight of his past decisions catching up with him. But on the other hand, she was also painfully aware of the harm Drew had caused over the years. He had burned many bridges, including her own. Elizabeth had been there for him in the past, only to have him turn his back when things got tough. She had always been the one to clean up the messes Drew left behind, and now she was tired. She had no desire to be drawn into his chaos again. She had moved on from the pain he had caused her, and now, seeing him come to her for help, she couldn't help but feel resentful. She had warned him before that his actions would have consequences, but he had never truly listened. In that moment, Elizabeth knew that helping Drew would only enable him to continue down the same destructive path. She believed that he needed to face the consequences of his actions and learn the hard way. After all, he had made his choices, and now it was time for him to own up to them. Elizabeth didn't want to see Drew suffer. But she also knew that sometimes the only way to truly change was to experience the consequences of one's decisions. If she helped him now, it would only prolong the inevitable and prevent him from facing the reality of his actions. Deep down, Elizabeth wanted Drew to become a better person, but that change had to come from within him. It couldn't be something she or anyone else could fix for him. As much as it pained her, Elizabeth stood her ground. She told Drew that she couldn't help him this time. She was firm in her decision. Knowing that it was the right thing to do, even if it meant turning away someone she had once cared about. She made it clear that Drew needed to take responsibility for his own actions. And that if he wanted to make things right, he had to do it on his own. The bitterness in her voice was hard to ignore, but it was clear that Elizabeth had reached her breaking point. She had given him too many chances before, and now, it was time for him to face the music. Drew's eyes showed a mix of frustration, desperation, and regret. But there was little Elizabeth could do to change her mind. Drew left Elizabeth's presence feeling a mixture of anger and hopelessness. He had hoped that, despite everything, she would be the one person who would come through for him. But instead, he was left with the harsh reality that his actions had consequences. And Elizabeth was not going to be the one to save him this time. As he walked away, he couldn't help but feel the weight of his past decisions pressing down on him. He had lost the support of many, including the one person who might have been able to offer him a lifeline. Now, he would have to find another way to navigate the storm that was brewing around him, but deep down, he knew it wouldn't be easy. The road ahead was uncertain, and the people he had wronged were no longer going to let him off the hook.